Hello and welcome to another episode of the series where we're conquering freeCodeCamp curriculum. Today we're going to look to the next section on the JavaScript algorithms and data structures certification, which is ES6. This is basically the newer kinda version of JavaScript where they introduced a lot of new and interesting stuff. So it should be a lot of fun. If you missed yesterday's streams, we completed the basic JavaScript section, where we learned basically the basics of JavaScript, more or less. Yeah. If you missed them, you can rewatch them. There is a playlist in the description below where you can find all of the live streams recorded, and you can watch them whenever you want. Hello to everyone who's watching into the live streams, and also hello for those of you who are watching the recording. Alright, let's see what the ES6 is about. ECMAScript is a standardized version of JavaScript with the goal of unifying the language's specifications and features. Okay, all major browsers and JavaScript runtimes follow this specification. The term ECMAScript is interchangeable with the term JavaScript. Alright, good to know. Most of the challenges on freeCodeCamp use the ECMAScript 5 ES5 specifications of the language, finalized in 2009. But JavaScript is an evolving programming language. As features are added and revisions are made, new versions of the language are released for use by developers. Good. The most recent standardized version is called ECMAScript 6 or ES6, released in 2015. And this is what we're going to learn today. Okay, this adds some powerful features, which include arrow functions, classes, modules, promises, generators, let and const, and a lot more. Note, not all browsers support ES6 features. If you use ES6 in your own project, you may need to use a program, transpiler, to convert your ES6 code into ES5 using browsers support until browsers support ES6. Alright. I'm not sure which browsers don't use ES6 yet. Interesting. Alright, go to the first lessons. Explore the difference between var and let keywords. Okay. One of the biggest problems with declaring variables with var is that you can overwrite variable declarations without an error. Yeah. So you can see here we have var camper and again var camper, and this is basically not an error in ES5, which it should be. But a new keyword called let was introduced to solve this potential issue with the var keyword. If you were to replace var with let in the variable declarations of the code above, the result will be an error, which should be the case, right? This error can be seen in the console of your browser. So unlike var, using let, when using let, a variable with the same name cannot be declared once. Note the use strict. This enables strict mode, which catches common coding mistakes and unsafe actions. Yeah, this was used before we had let, so that we didn't have some of the issues. You can see also that we can just say x equal to a number without declaring it, and it wouldn't be an error before. We had to use strict. If we wanted to catch this error. Alright. Yeah, so basically this is what I'm using also. Let and const. Now instead of var. I'm not using var for a long time. We're going to look over what const do in the future. So now let's just change this to let instead. Alright. Let's see, run the tests and next. Okay, I was checking if you can hear me. Let me know. I guess you can. Alright, compare scopes of var and let keywords. When declaring a variable with var, it is declared globally or locally if declared inside the function. We learned about this yesterday in the yesterday stream. The let keyword behaves similarly but with some extra features. When you declare a variable with the let keyword inside a block, statement or expression, its scope is limited to that block, statement or expression. Okay, let's see what we have here. Var num array. Yeah, you can see here that we declared var I inside the condition for the for loop, but we can also access it outside. It will return 3, which is not very good. It's like declaring it in the global scope, right? Okay, this behavior will cause problems if you were to create a function and store it for later use inside the for loop that uses the I variable. This is because the stored function will always refer to the value of the updated global I variable. Alright. Var print num2, it's a function, and then look at that. We can use this function even though if it was declared inside the for loop, which is not good. Okay, as you can see, print num2 prints 3 and not 2. Oh yeah, that also, because I will be updated in the meantime, because the value of I is assigned, because the value assigned to I was updated, and the print num2 returns the global I, and not the value I had. Oh boy, slow down. Read it slower. Okay, so this is because the value assigned to I was updated, and the print num2 returns the global I, and not the value I had, not what the value I had when the function was created in the for loop. The let keyword does not follow this behavior. So yeah, basically the I was updated and it was now stored in the global scope, and this is why it returns 3. Okay. You can see here that I is not defined because it was not declared in the global scope. It is only declared within the for loop. Print num2 returned the correct value because 3 different I variables with the unique values were created by let keyword within the loop statement. Okay, let's see. Fix the code so that I declared in the if statement is separate variable than I declared in the first line of the function. Alright, let's see. I declared in the if statement is a separate variable than I declared in the first line of the function. Be certain not to use var keyword anywhere in the code. So we have let here, function block scope. Scope of I is this. Alright, so we added let and it will created another I. Declare a read-only variable with the const keyword. The keyword let is not the only way to declare variables. In ES6, you can also declare variable using the const keyword. Const has all the awesome features of let, with the added bonus that variables declared using const are read-only, so you can't change the values. It cannot be reassigned. If you can see here, const favorite pet, it's cats, but then we can't change it. It will return an error. Okay. Now it will throw an error. Alright. This helps when you accidentally attempt to reassign a variable that is meant to stay constant. Think of these constant variables like something you don't want to change. For example, you want to create a box with fixed width and height. So you declare the width and height with the const. This way you're making sure that you cannot change the size of the box if you want the box to remain the same size. Okay. Note it is common for developers to use uppercase variable identifiers for immutable values and lowercase or camel case for mutable values. Okay, in a later challenge you will see an example of a lowercase variable identifier being used for an array. Change the code so that all variables are declared using let or const. Use let when you want the variable to change and const when you want the variable to remain constant. Also, remain variables declared with const to confirm the common practices, meaning constants should be in all caps. Alright. Let's see. This should be let because it will change, and this should be const. Oops, sentence. Alright, and we're using it. Let's see, does it work? Perfect, it is. Mutate an array declared with const. The const declaration has many use cases in modern JavaScript. Some developers prefer to assign all their variables using const by default, unless they know they will need to reassign the value. Only in that case they use let. Yep, that is what I'm doing. However, is it important to understand that objects, including arrays and functions, assigned to a variable using const are still mutable. Using the const declaration only prevents reassignment of the variable identifier. Okay. You can see here we have s being an array. We can't reassign s. This will throw an error. But we can change the s at index 2. So basically the 7 with 45. You can see here that it will be changed. Alright. Yeah, that's pretty much what I said. An array is declared as 572. Change the array to 257 using various element assignment. Alright, so this is invalid. We need to do s of 0 to be 2, s of 1 to be 5, and s of 2 to be 7. We're changing the elements at the specific indexes. Alright. Prevent object mutation. As seen in the previous challenge, const declaration alone doesn't really protect your data from mutation. To ensure your data doesn't change, JavaScript provides a function, object.freeze, to prevent data mutation. Once the object is frozen, you can no longer add, update, or delete properties from it. Any attempt at changing the object will be rejected without an error. Alright, so look at that. We declare an object, then we use object.freeze and we pass in our object, and when we want to change, it will be ignored. Mutation not allowed. Alright, and it will stay the same. That's good to know. I haven't used this also that much, but is a nice feature to know. In this challenge, you are going to use met.freeze to prevent mathematical constants from changing. You need to freeze the met constant object so that no one is able to alter the value of pi. Alright, so object.freeze met constant. Okay, let's see the console. Yeah, you can see that we have no error here, but when we are freezing it, this block of code will run. It will try to assign it, but it won't be able, and it will catch the error and console log it. Alrighty. Next. Use arrow functions to write const size anonymous functions. Okay, this is also useful and I use this a lot. In JavaScript, we often don't need the name of our functions, especially when passing a function as an argument to another function. Instead, we create inline functions. We don't need to name these functions because we do not reuse them anywhere else. To achieve this, we often use the following syntax. So we declare a variable, we give it a function. In ES6 provide us with a syntactic sugar to not have to write anonymous functions this way. Instead, you can use arrow function syntax. Alright. So yeah, this is basically the same as this, with an added bonus. We'll learn about this probably in the future. When there is no function body and only a return value, arrow function syntax allows you to omit the keyword return as well. Yeah. You can see here that we're only declaring a variable and then we are returning it. So if you only want to return it, then you can write it like this. This is an arrow function and this will be returned after this arrow. Alright, rewrite the function assigned to the variable magic, which returns a new date. Use the arrow function syntax. Okay, so first we remove the function keyword and add the arrow, and then we can remove the entire block because we're just returning a new date. So let's remove this and remove this also, and that's it. Now we're just returning a new date whenever we're calling the magic function like this. Alright, let me show you actually. Console.log magic. Oops. Okay, look at that. We have a new date. Run the test. Magic. You should replace bar keyword. User should replace. Oh, yeah. So this should be a constant. Alright, I didn't read this. Alright, good. Done. Next. Write arrow functions with parameters. Alright, so we can pass in parameters as this. So as we did for the functions, but if we only have one item, we can also skip the parentheses. As you can see here, we're not adding the parentheses, although it's required to have the parentheses when you have 0 or more than 1 items. So let me show you. Const no parameters, arguments. I always confuse this thing too. Okay, no arguments. So we have something like this, return whatever, no arguments. When we don't have any arguments, we need to add the parentheses. But then we can have one argument and we can have, I don't know, item 1. One argument plus item 1. So this is the return, and you can see we can avoid using the parentheses. And if we have 2 items, item 1, item 2, you can see that we need to, oops, let's change this to 2 arguments. You can see that we have an error. So we need to add the parentheses around. 2 arguments, item 1 and item 2. Alright, so that's it for the arrow function and how you should use parentheses. If you want, you can always just add the parentheses around, but you'll see that if you're using something like Prettier to prettify your code and adjust it, it will just remove the parentheses. But more of that probably later. Alright, let's see how we can implement this code. First, let's convert this to a const. Then let's convert this to an arrow function, like that. And because we're only returning, we can delete everything here and here. Alright, so now it's an error function and the return is applied. Alright, hello everyone who joined in the live stream. Sir, is there any framework or library in use for AI JavaScript? Yes, I think it's called, how it is called? I forgot. Let me quickly search. JavaScript AI library. You should just Google it. TensorFlow. If you have any questions like this, just Google it quickly and you can find the answer. Hello Ankit, hello LZN 2020. Welcome. Alright, let's get back to our work. Set default parameters for your functions. Alright, this is a nice one. In order to help us create more flexible functions, ES6 introduces default parameters for functions. Check out this code. You can see we have an error function, arrow, not error, right? And inside here, as an parameter, you can give them a default value by just saying equals to something. This will be the default value if the argument it won't be passed. You can see here in the example, if we're saying greetings John, we have hello John. But if we're just saying greeting, then we have hello anonymous. Alright. The default parameter kicks in when the argument is not specified or it is undefined. As you can see in the example above, the parameter name will receive its default value. Alright, modify the function increment by adding default parameters so that it will add 1 to number if value is not specified. Alright, so the value should be 1 by default. So as you can see here, we have 5 and 2, which returns 7. And then we have 5 and nothing, so it's undefined, which will return 5 plus 1, the default. Let me see what happens if we pass in undefined here. That's interesting. So we can't pass undefined, it will just kick into the default value. Nice. Alright. Run the tests. Use the rest parameter with function parameters. Ooh, another one. Good one. In order to help us create more flexible functions, ES6 introduces the rest parameter for function parameters. With the rest parameter, you can create functions that take a variable number of arguments. These arguments are stored in an array that can be accessed later from using the function. Check this code. How many? And we have this ... syntax followed by args. This is the parameter. And you can see you have passed args.length argument. So it will be an array, these args. And look at that. We can call now how many and pass in as many arguments we want. 0, 1, 2. In this case are 3 arguments. And then it will return you have passed 3 arguments. Or we can also have different types, string, null, an array, an object. And look, we have passed 4 arguments. This is nice. The rest parameter eliminates the need to check the args array and allows us to apply map, filter and reduce on the parameters array. Alright. Modify the function sum using the rest parameter in such a way that the function sum is able to take any number of arguments and return their sum. Alright. Let's see what they do here. So we have a sum and it gets 3 variables, 3 parameters. And then we're creating an args array out of them. But we can just remove this and say ... args. And we can remove this line of code. args, then reduce. This is the reduce function. I guess we're learning about it later. And look at that. Now it will do the sum 1, 2, 3. And the nice thing about this is that we can do 4, 5, 6, whatever, and it will work for an infinite number of arguments, which is nice. Using the spread operator to evaluate arrays in place. Alright. We have the spread operator, which allows us to expand arrays and other expressions in places where multiple parameters or elements are expected. The ES6 code below uses apply to compute the maximum value in an array. Yeah, so let's say we wanted to, it's interesting that we haven't learned about math.max yet, but basically math.max is a function that if you give it a couple of numbers, let me show you, console.log math.max 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, whatever. If you give it like this, it will return the maximum of the 5 numbers. But the issue with this is that what if you have an array? You can, let's say we create an array here, const array 1 or whatever, let's see, 3 already, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you would have to do something like array 3 of 0 or array 3 of 1, array 3 of 2, and so on and so forth. And then if you would change this array and add another number, you would have to add it again. So we need a way so that the math.max function gets the entire array. You can do that in the ES5 way by just calling the apply function, passing a null as the first argument, and then we can pass in the array here, array 3. So basically it will apply, let me check, it will apply the maximum math.max function on all of the elements of the array, of the ARR3 array. And yeah, this is how it works in ES5. But the nice thing in ES6 is that we can drop the apply here, and instead of using all the items from the array separately, we can just say array3, and it will spread the array. And look at that. Now the maximum is 6. This works the same for the minimum and all the other functions which require, you can pass multiple elements. Hello Adrian, welcome. Good. Right. Let's see what else. Array returns an unpacked array. In other words, it spreads the array. However, the spread operator only works in place, like in an argument to a function or in an array literal. The following code will not work. Const spread array. This is a syntax error. So you can only use it inside the function call like this, or if you want to concatenate multiple arrays. Like, let me give const a1, you want it 1, 2, 3, and const a2 will be 4, 5, 6. And then you want to have a3, which will be a1 and a2. You will do a1 and a2. And if we're consoling now a3, look at that, we have an array of all the elements. Even though if we change this now, it will still be concatenated. Adrian, you love what I'm doing. Thank you. I hope this is useful for you. Good. Now let's do the challenge. Copy all contents of array 1 into another array, array 2. Oh, look at that, we just did that. That's funny. So we can just do dot array 1. And then we have all the contents of the array 1 inside array 2. Awesome. Use the structuring assignment to extract values from objects. Alright, this is another good one. I guess that because we're only having like 31 lessons inside the freeCodeCamp's ES6 curriculum, they're all packed, so all the nice features of ES6 are demonstrated here. Good. Let's see. So in the past, in the ES6 code, if you wanted to get the value of a property inside of an object, you would have to do something like this: const today, and you will say high temperatures dot today. Const tomorrow, high temperatures dot tomorrow. But in a new ES6, you can do something like this: const, and then you put the brackets, the curly brackets, and you can say today and tomorrow, like that, and it will equal to high temperatures. So basically this is the same as this code. It will only work if the names here are the same as the properties inside the object. So if it will not work for, I don't know, tomorrow, return right, yeah, so this is a good example. If we have tomorrow, it won't work because we don't have the tomorrow object, the property on this object, so it only works for tomorrow. Alright, let's see what else they say here if I didn't cover it. You can extract as many or few values from the object as you want. Yeah, you can only get today or only tomorrow or whatever you want. Let's delete this because we don't need it. And apparently we also need yesterday. So look at that, how simple it is. We just say yesterday. And boom, we have all the 3 values. You should use the structuring to create the tomorrow value. Tomorrow. Replace the two assignments with an equivalent structuring assignment. It should still assign the variables today and tomorrow, the values of today and tomorrow from the... What I'm missing? Let's see. You should use the structuring to create the tomorrow variable. But I'm doing it. Should not be defined. Okay, so apparently we shouldn't add yesterday. Alright, use the structuring assignment to assign variables from object. Okay, so you remember that I said that you can't use other names, so you have to have the same variable name as the property name. But you can. If you're adding a colon and then your new name, you can store the name of the user inside the username. Hopefully this makes sense. Let me show you how. So we have, yeah, this is the perfect example. You can see that we can store in high today the high temperatures of today, and in high tomorrow the same. Usually inside the destructuring you will do today and tomorrow to get the values from the object because this is their property names. But if you want to reassign them to new variable names, you can just add a semicolon here. A colon, right? Not a semicolon. I confused those two. Alright, and you can say high today. So basically now the temperature here for today, it will be assigned to the high today variable. And here high tomorrow. Let's remove this and Run. Perfect. Okay, Adrian says, I found making multiple constructors a bit complicated in JavaScript. Yeah, but you don't need to make multiple constructors, do you? You can make a general constructor which works for all of them, sort of, with conditions. Okay, let's see. Use the structuring assignment to assign variables from nested objects. Okay, the same principle applies here. You can see that we want to get from the user the John Doe user. And then inside it, we want to get the age and email. We need to use a colon here and also another syntax like this. And we can reassign them to user age and user email. So this is pretty obvious. Let's do it. So const, first we want today this property, and then from that property we want low and high. From low all forecast. Okay. Oh, and we want to reassign them to low today and high today. Alright. Next, use the structuring assignment to assign variables from array. Alright, so you can see here that we can also do the same syntax, but for arrays we need to use the brackets. And we can store the values from the arrays inside the variable, constant variables here. So if here we have a and b as being index 0 and 1, so it will take the values from index 0 and the values at the index 1. And then if we console them, you can see we have 1 and 2. We can also skip some values by not saying a variable name here, and we only taking 0, 1, we're skipping 2 and 3, and we get that, and we're getting 4, right? 0, 1, 2 and 3 skipped, and we're getting 4. Yeah. So 0, 1, 2 and 3 skipped, and we're getting the 4th index, the value at the index 4. Alrighty, let's see. Use the structuring assignment to swap the values of a and b so that a receives the values stored in b and b receives the values stored in a. Alright, this is a fun one. Before, you would have to use a temporary variable to do the swap. So you will do something like let temp temporary be a, then a will be b, and b will be temporary. Because you couldn't do something like a is b and b is a. Because a will be b already, so b won't change, right? So you would have to store the first value in a temporary variable. But now with, let's see, does this work? No, you should use the structuring. Yeah, so now with ES6, you can do something like, using the array destructuring, you can do a and b equals to b and a. So this is a weird syntax, I don't use it that much, but you can see now in the console that a is 6 and b is 8. So they swapped places. Alright, so this is the destructuring way to swapping variables. Use the structuring assignment with the rest parameter to reassign array elements. Okay. Let's see. So you can see here we're using the structuring. We're getting the first and the second elements from the array, and then we're using the spread, the rest parameter, to get all the remaining values from the array inside the array constant. Ooh, so many terms. I don't blame you if you find it confusing. It is sometimes. You have to practice a lot with them, and it will get easier with practice. Okay, and you can see here that a and b is 1 and 2, and all of the rest elements remain inside this array as an array. Okay, let's see. Use the structuring assignment with the rest parameter to perform an effective slice. So that array is a subarray of the original array source with the first two elements omitted. Array equals list. Okay, so we want the first two to be omitted, and then we want to take the array. Right? We don't need to add A and B here because we're not using it. But let's see. We're leaving A and B there so it will be cleaner. Yeah, from the list. Alright. So you can see now that the array is the remaining array when after we removing the first two. As I said, you don't need A and B here because we're not using it. So you can just omit it, but it doesn't look that pretty. So yeah. Next. Use the structuring assignment to pass an object as a function's parameter. Okay. Yep. Consider the code below. So you're passing an object here and then you're destructuring on the next line. But you can also do destructuring inside in place here in the function's declaration. So basically these two are the same. You just don't need to declare the const and do equals to profile data. You can just do this in place and it will be the same, which is highly useful, making our code much prettier. Alright, this removes some extra lines and makes our code look neat. Look at that, they read my mind. This has the added benefits of not having to manipulate an entire object in a function. Alrighty, let's see. Use the structuring assignment within the argument to the function half to send only max and min inside the function. Okay, you can see here that we're passing the stats object entirely. But in this function we don't need to have it entirely, well, although it will be passed. And it will do stats.max and stats.min. But we can simply destructure it here, get the max and min, and then remove stats.stats. From here, which is the same. Alright, that's it. Does it work? Look at that, it does. Use strings, create strings using template literals. Alrighty, this is also a nice one. Remember that before, when we wanted to append something to a string, we had to use the plus sign. So we had a string, then plus the name, and then space, and then we had to account for everything. But now, with the ES6 template literals, instead of the quotes, we can use the backtick. This is called the backtick. On my keyboard is right on top of the Alt, but I'm on a Mac. Probably your backtick is on top of the tab somewhere. So make sure that you find where the backtick is. And then inside the backtick, which is the great thing, you can put variables. You can see here, hello, my name is, and then inside this syntax, we need a $sign because we're cool. And we need an opening and closing bracket, curly bracket. And inside here we can put variables, we can put functions, declarations, we can put whatever we want. And this will be, this will run, it will get the value and it will place it inside the string. So, we have a lot of code here. Let me show you how this works. So basically this greeting, as you can see it here, oh, and also another thing is that you can put it in a new line. If you remembered yesterday when we did the basic JavaScript, we had to have \n to get a new line, but we don't need anymore. So if we would to convert this to an older greetings string, we would need to do something like this. Greetings. Let's do const old greeting. Would have been hello, my name is. And then we needed a space, then plus person.name, then plus again, exclamation mark, and then backslash n because we needed a new line. Then plus I am plus person.age plus space years old. Look at that. So a lot of pluses, a lot of spacing. You need to take care of the new line and everything, which is not very clear. So just don't use it. If you want to have variables inside a string, just use the new template literal. And inside this syntax, you can add whatever you want. So goodbye old greeting and welcome new greeting. Okay, let's see what we need to do. Use template literal syntax with backticks to display each entry of the result object's failure array. So we want each entry should be wrapped inside an li element with the class attribute text warning and listed within the result display array. Use an iterator method, any kind of loop, to get the desired output. Alrighty, so basically this is what we good. Results display array. We need to get the failure, loop over all of these, and wrap them inside an li. Alright, let's do that. First, let's convert this to a let, because, well, no, it can be a const, and we're creating an array. Then let's create a for loop. Let I equals 0, I less than result dot wait, they're passing the array. Oh, okay, so we have the result our failure already inside this array. So we can just say array dot length I plus plus, and inside here basically now we have access to all of the items. So we can do result display array push, and we're pushing a new item inside it. So let's see, we're giving a li with a class of text warning, closing the li and also the closing tag, and inside here we want the array of at index I. I would like to see this. Console.log. Look at that. So we're looping over the array and we're getting the items, and then we also adding around it an li, which is great. Much simpler now with the template literals. Alright, next. Write concise object literals declarations using object property shorthand. Okay. Yeah, so when you want to create an object which has the same property name and value name, you can just remove the second one and do something like this, which is basically the same. Because the property name and the value name are the same, you can remove the right part. So that's what they do say here. Shorthand with the object to create and return an object with name, age, and gender. Okay, so that's it. Write concise declaration functions with ES6. When defining functions, you have to use the keyword function. But now you can remove the function, keyword, and colon altogether when defining functions in objects. Here's an example. So before, to have a function inside an object, which is possible, you had to write the property name and then the function keyword and then write the function block. But now you can just say the function name and already call the function here, the function block. Okay, so let's do that. We remove this and that's it. Boom. Use class syntax to define a constructor function. Okay. Yeah. Note that the class syntax is just syntax and not a fully fledged class-based implementation of an object-oriented paradigm, unlike in languages like Java, Python, Ruby, and etc. In ES6, we usually define a constructor function and use the new keyword to instantiate an object. So we had a function and then we had a new space shuttle, Jupiter. But in the new way, we can have a class and a constructor and then do the same new. Well, this is a little weird because so far we haven't learned about constructors and all of that. So I feel like they are rushing into this, which is okay, I guess, but if you're new to this might be confusing. So maybe I would take more time to go over the basics before showing this. Alright. Let me just go over this because yeah, this is the curriculum, so I don't have much to do. Okay, so let's create a class. Vegetables. That, and we need a constructor. Okay, constructor which will get the vegetable name, and then we're setting this that name will be, yeah, I don't read because I feel like a lot of stuff are missing, but yeah, we have getters and setters. You can get say get writer here, it will return, you can return and also set. All right, and then when you're getting the property, like in this case LOL, funny name for a book, that writer, even though this is a function, you can just put that writer like a property and it will get you that property. But if you set that property to something, it will act as a setter. Okay. Getters and setters are important because they hide internal implementation details. Note, it is convention to precede the name of a private variable with an underscore. Okay, I see. So yeah, this is a little higher. How can I explain? So higher level programming. We have private variables which you shouldn't allow users, other functions to see, and you only access it by public properties and all that stuff. I'm not that experienced with it, but yeah. Let's see. Use the class keyword to create a thermostat class. Class thermostat. Okay. We have a constructor which accepts Fahrenheit temperature. This dot, let's see how this works. This dot Fahrenheit will be Fahrenheit. So you can see we added an underscore as a convention to know that you basically can't access this property outside. You shouldn't access it, although, well, you. And then we're writing a get Fahrenheit, which will return this dot Fahrenheit, and we're setting Fahrenheit a new value. Well, that's it. Do they say how? Okay. Oh, wait, this is not what we want to do. Now create a getter and setter in the class to obtain the temperature in Celsius. Alright, remember that Celsius is this function, and this, where F the value of temperature in Fahrenheit and C the value in Celsius. Note, when you implement this, you will track the temperature inside the class in one scale, either Fahrenheit or Celsius. This is the power of getter and setters. You can create an API for another user who can get the correct result regardless of which one you track. In other words, you are extracting implementation details from the user. Okay. So we need to keep track of the temperature, but by default it will set it Fahrenheit. Okay. But how will it get it in Celsius? Oh, the getter and setters class to obtain temperature in Celsius. Okay, so we can store the Fahrenheit, and then we can return here this function. So 5 divided by 9 times Fahrenheit minus 32, and this will be Celsius. Oh, temperature, as this is what they use here. And set temperature, which will get the new temperature. And now we need to set this back to Fahrenheit, because they will pass in Celsius. So this dot Fahrenheit will be this function. So the new temperature, this will be Celsius. So it will be Celsius times 9 divided by 5 plus 30. So we're giving them the Celsius value, and we're getting the Celsius and converting it back to Fahrenheit. Oh, and we need to do this. Well, it's odd because first they set it Fahrenheit. Oh well. That's it. Does it work? Yeah. A little trickier, but okay. Create a module script. Ooh, interesting. JavaScript started with a small role to play on the otherwise mostly HTML. Today it's huge, and some websites are built almost entirely with JavaScript in order to make JavaScript more modular, clean, and maintainable. ES6 introduces a way to easily share code among JavaScript files. This invokes exporting parts of a file for use in one or more other files. Importing the parts you need where you need them. In order to take advantage of this functionality, you need to create a script in your HTML document with the type of module. Here's an example. Okay, I never used this before. A script that uses this module type can now use the import-export features you will learn about in the upcoming challenges. Add a script in the HTML, type of module. Okay, type of module, and give it index.js. Alright, interesting. Let's see next. Use import to share a code block. Export, sorry. Imagine a file called mathfunctions.js that contains several functions related to mathematical operations. One of them is stored in a variable, add, that takes in two numbers and returns their sum. You want to use this function in several different JavaScript files. In order to share it with these other files, you first need to export it. Okay. export const, and yeah, this is the syntax. The above is a common way to export a single function, but you can achieve the same thing like this. Okay, so we're declaring the function and then export it at the bottom. Yeah, well, I actually use this but in Node, not in the browser. Interesting. When you export a variable or function, you can import it in another file and use it without having to rewrite the code. You can export multiple things by representing the first example for each thing you want to export, or by placing them all in the export statement on the second example like this. Okay, like commas. There are two string related functions in the editor. Export both of them using the method of your choice. So we can do export uppercase string and lowercase, the methods. Exports is not defined. But we don't have export. Let's see. Okay, apparently it works. I'm not sure why they have the error there. Reuse JavaScript code using import. So yeah, now if we export it from that file, we can import, let's see, uppercase string, and we also want lowercase string from, and we need to specify the path to the file. String functions.js. Add the appropriate import statement, okay, and this function called string functions.js. Yeah, and now if we have this function, we can use them in this file. Okay, use star to import everything from a file. Alright, so this imports it like an object, I guess. Yeah, create an object called my math module. Okay, so we can use import all. So this is what you would say, import all as string functions from, and we say the path string functions.js. And now we can access those methods from the object. This is not used that much anymore. Import all. You would just import the functions you need, but yeah, in some cases you might want to import all. So it's good to know it exists. Create an export fallback with export default. In the export lesson, you learned about the syntax referred to as a named export. This allowed you to take multiple functions and variables available for use in other files. There is another export syntax you need to know, known as export default. Usually you will use this syntax if only one value is being exported from a file. Is it also used to create a fallback value for a file or module? Okay, so export default, and also we're exporting this function. Okay, we can export an anonymous function and named function. Since export default is just to declare a fallback value for a module or file, you can only have one value be a default export in each module or file. Okay. Additionally, you cannot use export default with var, let, or const. Okay. The following function should be the fallback value for this module. Please add the necessary code to do. Export default function subtract. And we can also remove this because we'll make it anonymous function. Import the default function. Okay. Import the default function. You need to use import syntax. In the following example, add is the default export of the math functions.js file. Here is how we import it. Import add from this. You can see, but we don't have the curly braces anymore, because this will now import the default export. I hope that makes sense. In the following code, import the default export. Yeah. Okay, import, let's see, give it the name subtract from math function.js. Well, this implies that the math function.js only has this subtract method, or it is a default. But this is not the case that much, because if you have subtract, you probably add and multiply and all that. Ooh, create a JavaScript promise. Promise is JavaScript exactly what it sounds like. You use it to make a promise to do something, usually asynchronously. It's so interesting that we're learning about promises, but we haven't learned about set interval, set timeout. Okay, I don't really like this, but whatever. When the task completes, you either fulfill your promise or fail to do so. Promise is a constructor function, so you need to use the new keyword to create one. It takes a function as its argument with two parameters, resolve and reject. These are methods used to determine the outcome of the promise. The syntax looks like this. So we create a promise by using new promise, and we pass in two variables, which are two parameters, which are basically functions. This will run when it's resolved, and this is if it will be rejected. Create a new promise called make server request. And let's see, promise, and we pass in resolve and reject. Okay, and here we'll do something. Probably in the next challenge. Complete the promise with resolve and reject. Okay, so you can see here that we do something in this block, and if the response from server is true, we want to, let's see, resolve. So we call the resolve function. Otherwise, we call the reject one. Right? The resolve and reject parameters given the property argument as used to do so. Resolve is used when you want your promise to succeed, and reject is used when you want it to fail. ID. Oh, look, we can pass in some. The example above uses strings for the argument of these functions. But it can really be anything. Often it might be an object that you would use data from to put on your website or elsewhere. Make the promise handle success and failure. If response from server is true, call the resolve method to successfully complete the promise. Pass resolve a string with the value of we got the data. Right. Like this, and we want to pass it here. We got the data. If response is false, then reject, and we pass in data not received. And basically this will be sent to the function which calls this promise. So make request server will be something like make request server like this, which will return a promise, and then we'll do then, and I guess we're learning them in the. Let's see. Oh, look at that. We're almost close. Okay, handle a fulfillment promise with then. Yeah, this is what I wanted to show you just before. Promises are most useful when you have a process that takes an unknown amount of time in your code. So it's something asynchronous. Often a server request. When you make a server request, it takes some amount of time. After it completes, you usually want to do something with the response from the server. This can be achieved by using the then method. The then method is executed immediately after your promise is fulfilled with resolve. Here is an example. So we have my promise, which is basically in our case was this make request server, make server request, and then we chain the .then method, which will get our result. We passed this string here, so this will be our result this case, and we want to do something. Maybe on a website you want to send data to a server, you want the server to manipulate the data and send you back a result. And when the result is sent back, you want to do something with the result, show it on a web page, or I don't know, hide something or whatever. Okay, add the then method to your promise. Use result as a parameter of its callback function as and log result to the console. Okay, so we're calling the make server request, and then we're changing that chaining. Then we have the result, and here we say console.log read. Alrighty. I was expecting it to run in the console, but apparently. Alright. Handle a reject promise with catch. So if we have the then method to get when the function resolves, when the promise resolves, we can also get when it rejects by using the dot catch. And this can be chained also. So we have the dot then when it's resolved, and then dot catch when is not. So here we'll have something like the error, and we will do console.log error. In this case, it will log this. Okay, look at that. We finished ES6. That was nice. It was a little bit more trickier, especially if you're just starting out. If you have a little experience with JavaScript, it's fine. You'll learn some stuff and you'll understand. But yeah, hopefully this was useful for you. In the next section, we're going to learn about, let's see, regular expressions, I think. Yeah, this is interesting. So I'm going to do another live stream today for those of you who want to watch it today. If you're watching from the future, watching this recording, you can find the next video uploaded in this playlist on the description on this video. You can find all the recordings there. Thank you all for listening and for watching, and I hope that it helps. Yeah, that's all. Have a great day. Bye.